Friends, we could be on the verge of a substantial humanitarian crisis as Melissa strengthens and moves through the Caribbean. Welcome into the channel. My name is Jason. I've been tracking the weather for over 4 decades, and in today's video, I'm going to break down the 3 critical elements that you need to know about this storm system as it evolves and moves over the next 5 to 7 days. Steering patterns are light, and the exact path of the storm is still uncertain, but new data is coming in all the time, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I will be breaking down that data as it comes in and deliver it to you. Turn those notifications on so you see new videos when they come out. We're going to start here with element number 1, and that is the intensity. We need to know the intensity. We also need to know the second thing, which is the track, and then finally what effects or impacts there will occur as a result of this storm. That's the third thing, okay? So we're going to start here with the intensity of the storm. We've got severe weather to talk about and your weekend forecast coming up in just a little bit, but right now we're going to focus on the intensity forecast for Melissa as she moves ahead over the next couple of days. And I'll tell you this, intensity forecasting in terms of peak intensity is almost impossible to get at, but you can get an upper range of the intensity and the trajectory over the next several days too. And that's based on a few key attributes. And the first and most obvious is there a circulation? And of course there's a circulation with Melissa, because it is a tropical storm, which implies a circulation. In fact, Melissa has a low-level circulation that's way over here, and then a mid-level circulation that's over in this area. It is offset, and that would mean that intensification is probably not going to occur in this while the cyclone is in this state. Why is this happening? Well, because there is the second element, and that is wind shear. Wind shear is a problem for tropical cyclones. They don't like it, and Melissa doesn't like it. You can see the convection getting blown off. In fact, here's another big blob over here to the east, and so it is asymmetrical and unlikely to strengthen very much until wind shear subsides. And the third thing is ventilation in the upper levels, and right now there's just not a lot of good ventilation around the storm. We need high pressure aloft to ventilate that air as it comes up out of the core. Tilted circulation means there's wind shear. When you get that stacked vertical system like this, it's all systems go. You can sort of imagine a top. When you have a top that's kind of slowing down, it's kind of wobbly. Well, the maximum intensity of a top is when it's sitting straight up and spinning tightly, and that's what a tropical cyclone likes to do to be strong. It's very, very similar, and when you get that good ventilation around it and light shear, you see all systems go for rapid intensification. Well, we're taking a look at shear. Reds and yellows are not good, and the cyclone is caught up into that right now. There's Jamaica right here, and Cuba just to the north of that. And as it is here in the northern Caribbean, right now there's plenty of shear, but over the next couple of days you start to see a little bit more blues and greens around the cyclone. And of course, as she travels south of Jamaica in here into the western Caribbean, you've got a couple of days that we're going to see shear lessen. And even look at this, you've got ventilation coming out here in this direction and around in this direction like that, and that improves over time as well. So you see that upper level ventilation really take shape, and you got a good anticyclone sitting over top of the system here as we go on out into Tuesday, and then it starts to move north, and eventually still got good ventilation here, and it starts to feel that shear as it gets past Cuba. Okay, so it's going to weaken again as that occurs, but in the meantime you still have an environment over the next 24 hours of shear, but that will abate. The other thing, the fourth thing, is what? It's moisture. Look at this. Moisture is green, dry air is brown, and there's a little bit of dry air, but look what happens as we go on out through Sunday and into Monday. We get a good core, moist envelope around the storm, so plenty of moisture. No dry air here impeding the storm system. So again, another factor in favor of intensification as we go out through early next week. And then finally, folks, fuel is needed. And what is fuel? Fuel is high ocean heat content. And in the Caribbean, right down here, you see the highest ocean heat content in the Atlantic and maybe even the world, folks. It's very, very warm, and it's very warm over a depth. This shows the depth that it's warm. So this system has a lot of fuel. Jacuzzi water, bath water, whatever you want to call it. It is rocket fuel, and it's going to take off when the upper level environment gets right and the system gets stacked. And some of the models are showing this. I think a lot of these models may be overdone or underdone, as yesterday we saw a few Cat 5s. Today we only see 1 or 2 Cat 4s, and a lot of this is a result of interaction with potentially Jamaica over the next few days. But if it doesn't interact with land, we get that shear to weaken. We're going to see probably more of these pop up into the Category 4, maybe even Category 5 range as we go on out in time. Here is the second item that we need to be paying attention to, and that's the track. Can have the strongest hurricane in the world. If we don't know the track, then it doesn't really tell us anything. And so track is still a bit uncertain. Steering patterns right now are erratic out here in the Caribbean. A ridge is forecast to build in over the next 24 to 48 hours and nudge this system west. Right now it's kind of drifting around and maybe even moves a little bit north, but you can see something critical here. Most of these solutions take this over or just south of Jamaica. You see this? Even if the system is strengthening as it moves south of Jamaica and the core is not over Jamaica, you're still going to get a lot of rain and a lot of wind, Jamaica. You need to be preparing right now and wrapping those preparations up, because most of this guidance takes it near or over the island, and this will be very, very critical where it tracks, because that's where the core of the strongest winds will go. But even outside of that core, you're going to see impacts, and eventually Cuba, parts of Haiti here, going to pick up a lot of rain, and this is going to be a very strong system the way it looks. You can see that steering kind of flowing in here over time. Here's the cyclone down here, and if we take a look, you can see these little red areas popping in. That's some ridging trying to get developing over the top. It's going to nudge the system back to the west and hopefully far enough to where the core doesn't come over Jamaica, but a lot of models are eventually turning it to the north as we get on out in toward Tuesday and Wednesday approaching Jamaica. This is the European, and it tracks it right over the island as a very, very, very strong, probably Category 4 storm system. This would be catastrophic for Jamaica and bring a lot of rain, a lot of wind, but this ridge eventually is going to nudge it to the west, and we've got this trough working over the southeast. It's going to bring rain to the southeast, but it's going to start to pick the system up, carry it up here. It will encounter some shear and eventually start to weaken and move on out into the Atlantic. And as a matter of fact, the European's going to show that, and we'll take a look at that in a second. Here is one of the hurricane models, and look at this. As I move this forward, just moving it forward, this is out at tomorrow, Saturday, 995 storm. It's starting to strengthen, gets down to 986 really quickly. Here is Jamaica coming into view. The storm system is getting very, very strong. You can see the wind field starting to expand, 970 as we get on out into approach Sunday morning. Plenty of rain will be falling here over Jamaica at this time. This particular model keeps it just south and to the west of Jamaica. A lot of other models bring it right over the island, so just because one model shows it not hitting you directly, you need to still prepare as though it's going to come right over you. It strengthens down to 932, 931, and then finally hits Cuba, and of course the land interaction there in the terrain will weaken it. But Cuba, you're in for a lot of rain and a lot of wind. We're going to take a look at those impacts here in just a minute. That's where that model goes. The European, of course, we already saw this. It begins to move it across just south of Jamaica as we get on into the weekend, and there it goes. Starts to get it very strong here just west and south of Jamaica as we get on into Tuesday, and then it starts to fill it, in fact, to that trough to the north, comes over Jamaica as a 930 millibar storm system that's probably getting into Category 4 range, and then crosses eastern Cuba. Of course, lots of rain, lots of wind. The Google DeepMind, in terms of the ensemble forecast here in the AI model, you can look what happens as we get on out toward next week. We're looking at Wednesday. We still got some members back here in the Caribbean. Some members are already out here in the Atlantic, so there's a lot of spread on the timing of this too. But anywhere from Monday to Thursday, really be paying attention down here from Jamaica up to Cuba. But all of these members take it on out of the Caribbean eventually as we get on out toward 210 hours. This is next Saturday. Got a big spread here. A lot of them go over Jamaica. Some go just to the east. Some go just to the west. Get on in here over Cuba and then toward Bermuda. You're going to have to watch this, Bermuda. You could be dealing with a strong hurricane mid to late next week, so you need to be preparing as well. And most of the members go on up here, and some get it up into Nova Scotia. A couple turn it back into the northeast. That's not out of the question. We've got a big ridge building in over Canada, and that will play a role in eventually where this thing goes. And so the Google DeepMind has some uncomfortable number of members here coming back toward the United States. That's not set in stone, but it's a track that's, even though it may not be likely, the most likely, still on the table up here in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. You can get some experience some impacts from this as well. And here's the official sort of forecast track. We'll go back to this view, and you can see this. It remains a tropical storm, starts to gain hurricane status over the next 24 hours, rapidly strengthens. National Hurricane Center is calling for rapid strengthening to a major, and it tracks it just west of Bermuda over here toward eastern Cuba, but we've got a very wide forecast cone. This is for the center of circulation, okay? So even if the center is not over you, you've still got a big wide hurricane that's going to impact you with potential rain and wind as well. A very wide area could be impacted from that. So impacts could occur well outside of this cone, and the steering patterns are still up in the air in terms of exactly where it'll go. But in terms of impacts, that's kind of the third thing that we need to look at here, folks. What is the impact going to be? This is total precipitation, total rainfall, and we're out here at Tuesday morning. So already we're looking at 6 to 8 inches of rain across the island of Jamaica. A lot of rainfall up here in the peninsula here in Haiti, and then rain already falling up in Cuba. Look what happens as we go on out through Tuesday into Wednesday. That big rain falls through Jamaica over a couple of days time frame, and then we run this on out here, and it's still raining in Cuba. 20 plus inches of rain in Jamaica, up here in the little peninsula here in Haiti. There's going to be tons and tons and tons of rain with this storm. The terrain will induce landslides. When you get those hills and you get saturated on those hills, you know that there's going to be landslides, folks. There's going to be life-threatening flash flooding out of the storm. You need to know that some communities could be cut off and isolated. It's going to be a very bad situation if this plays out like this. And then in terms of the wind gusts, we're looking at big gusts. It's off the scale, 145 mile per hour. This is 145 knots, okay, or miles per hour. I'm sorry, it is miles per hour on this map here. And look at this. This is off the scale, so it's probably greater than that. If the European is right, this is going to be a strong storm system. You're going to see a lot of wind. If it moves over the island, you're looking at gusts well over 140, 150 miles per hour, and on up into parts of Haiti, and eastern Cuba is under the gun too. I cannot stress enough that you need to be wrapping preparations up for this storm, and consider it a life-threatening storm system for all of Jamaica, parts of eastern Cuba, parts of Haiti as well. You need to be preparing for that. We'll pray that it moves in a different direction, but prayer and hope, you still need to prepare, okay? So I can't stress that enough. If you know people in this part of the world, please make sure they're preparing, and send them this video, folks. So we've got a lot of unsettled weather to come. More model data will come out. We'll keep you posted on where the track will go, and I'll make sure that you're in the loop about what's going on as we move through time, folks. That's the tropical update. Now we're going to take a look at the weather across the lower 48 over the next couple of days. We'll wrap that up pretty quickly since we spent a lot of time here, and I've got your weather IQ question coming up as well. Today's weather IQ question is not about tropical cyclones. It is about, in fact, a wintertime cyclone, and I lived through this one, folks. And here it is. The 1993 storm of the century was a tornado outbreak, a heat wave, a mega flood, or a blizzard. If you know the answer, type it in the comments. If you want to guess, put it in there. And if not, just wait till the end of the show, and I will tell you about the 1993 storm of the century coming up. But right now, I've got to look at a severe weather threat that's over the south central plains, and we'll take a look at the rest of the weekend forecast coming right up. I'm going to start here by taking a look at the alerts map. There's some freeze warnings that are about to be discontinued, some flash flood warnings down here in central Oklahoma, down through eastern Texas, including Dallas. You're looking for plenty of rain over the next couple of days, so we're going to see those flash flood possibilities extend through tomorrow. And then up here in the northwest, wind advisories and snow is possible in the Cascades, where we find winter weather advisories. Going to see more storm activity coming in, big storm system moving into the Pacific Northwest this weekend, looking at bringing some snow to the higher elevations. In the meantime, we've got severe weather to take a look at, and that is centered over in Texas for much of central and western Texas today. Look for tornadoes being a possibility, 5% risk. Could see a big tornado or two down here with some supercells, and then eventually some line segments and clusters. Wind is a problem. Hail will be a problem too in this area. Second severe weather season is underway, and tomorrow looking at that threat shifting over into southeastern Texas, San Antonio and Austin, over here into Houston, Galveston, and south and central Louisiana as well down here in the bayou, folks. We're looking at lots and lots of opportunities for severe weather over the next couple days. Tornadoes again, wind and hail. We've got a big storm system moving through this area, bringing rounds of thunderstorms and heavy rain, spin in the atmosphere, and pretty good instability in places too. And so we're going to have to watch out for severe weather over the next couple of days. Let me get on here on the right display, and you can see already this afternoon got storms cranking up here. Let me roll this back just a little bit. So here in the morning, plenty of rain here in Oklahoma, up in Kansas, Arkansas, and Missouri, even some showers back in Texas this morning, but that will really break out as we gain some heating this afternoon. Look for storms to fire up in Oklahoma and back in toward Texas and central Texas, and look for Amarillo and up into Wichita Falls and back up into Oklahoma City. Thunderstorms through the afternoon and into the evening hours. Eventually, everything sort of coalesces into a line segment or line segments and clusters, but we're going to have some supercells to start with, so watch out for that as we go through the afternoon. And things will diminish a bit as we get on into the overnight hours, but still hold together pretty well down here in Texas, just left with some stratiform rain up here across Oklahoma and Kansas, but we're going to see plenty of rain. And then we get on down here toward tomorrow afternoon. That line pushes into Louisiana, bringing some wind with it and heavy rain and the potential for tornadoes as well, and more storms firing up tomorrow afternoon and into the evening hours in west or central and eastern Texas back into Louisiana. So we could see several rounds of thunderstorms over the next couple of days in these areas, and that will hang together through the nighttime and push on off into the east and get into the southeast, into Dixie by the time you wake up Sunday morning. So kind of a washout here in the south central plains over the next day or two, folks. So start to the weekend is going to be kind of rough. And here's total rainfall that could fall. Okay, we're looking at anywhere from 2 to as much as 4, even 5 inches in spots where thunderstorms train. This is convective activity, so it's difficult for the models to be in agreement exactly on where the training will occur, and these high totals might occur, but just generally look for anywhere from southern Kansas back through Oklahoma, much of Oklahoma, into central and southern Texas, into southern Louisiana to pick up copious amounts of rain with this storm system. You need a bunch of rain down here, but you don't need a bunch of rain all at once, and that's what we're looking at, folks. So flash flood watches are up, severe weather's possibility, so just keep that in mind as we go over the next 48 hours in those areas. Taking a look at the bigger pictures, we get on in toward this afternoon, folks. We've got storm system pushing in here toward the west and northwest, going to bring some heavy rain, even some snow up there eventually as a second push comes in. Drizzle and showers up in the Great Lakes and into the northeast as that low pressure that's been plaguing you guys is very slow to pull out over the next couple of days. Going to see clouds and rain, showers occasionally, and drizzle up there. You see that system moving through the southeast and more energy coming onshore just kind of continuously for a couple of days up here as we get on into Sunday afternoon. So kind of a washout up in the northwest this weekend. System moving through Dixie here as we get on into Sunday evening, overnight, Sunday night into Monday. Showers waking up, you're waking up to rain up here in the plains, and by the end of the day on Monday, showers pushing into the Midwest and a low pressure forming potentially off the coast early next week, going to keep us rainy here in the Carolinas and parts of the southeast where we need it, and then more energy diving in on the backside will potentially spin up another area of low pressure. I'm a little skeptical about this one though, but we'll see. That's kind of far out in time. Anyway, that's your forecast in terms of sensible weather. Looking at how the temperatures play out over the next couple of days, we'll get this centered. I should have had that centered already. Highs in the 40s in the Great Lakes, in the northeast today, 50s below that, 70s actually returning up here into the Central Plains, 80s across the south, and fairly warm for this time of year in the Intermountain West. That'll cool off a bit tomorrow as more energy comes ashore out here, bringing southerly flow out ahead of that. 60s and 70s up here in the Dakotas and parts of Montana. 50s though, and 40s even up here in the northeast as we head east and then down toward the Gulf Coast. We're looking at highs in the 80s on Saturday. Much the same, cooling off great deal here as cold air comes in out of Canada behind this system. Here in the northwest and the northeast, going to be chilly and drizzly probably on Sunday as well. 50s and 60s and then 70s and 80s down here in the south. Look for lows to be very chilly as you wake up tomorrow here in the east. 30s, freezing conditions up into the lakes in the northeast, and then 30s and 40s, and then a surge of warmer air coming up through the plains and cooler air back into the northern plains and the western portion of the country. And then Sunday getting cooler there, as well as remaining cool in the northeast, and pretty much the same, just cooling off a bit more out here in both northern quadrants of the country as we head into Monday with warmer conditions across the south. That is your weekend forecast and severe weather update. We'll take a quick look upstairs and see what the sun is doing and wrap up with the IQ question coming right up. Well, I always show space weather, so I'm going to show it. Not really a lot going on. You see kind of a blast here on the coronagraph. If you look here, it's going to recycle here, and watch this little blast coming off again. That is on kind of the back side and up to the, we'll call it the north here on this view, but it's not coming toward Earth. That's all you need to know about it. Another coronal hole is coming toward us. There it is, kind of coming around, and we'll watch solar wind from that. That's not due to even approach us until we get on in toward mid next week, so we'll watch that. No solar flares and nothing on the KP, so we're not in solar storm conditions. It doesn't look like we're going to be unless one of these sunspots here is going to act up, but they're not all that strong. See, green across the board. When the light is green, the trap is clean, folks. Remember that. We're coming into the end of the month, so that's something to keep in mind. Also, something to keep in mind is that we've got a new moon that we've just come out of, and a full moon that we're headed into, and that will be November the 5th. It will be a beaver moon, the first full moon of November. We're at 8.4%, waxing crescent. That brings us to the end of the show and the answer to today's weather IQ question. Remember, the question was, what was the 1993 storm of the century? Tornado, outbreak, heat wave, mega flood, or blizzard? In fact, it was a blizzard. I remember that storm. I was living in Raleigh, and we got blanked in terms of snowfall. For the most part, we got about an inch, but rapidly, as you went back to the west, you saw snowfall creep up Alabama into northern Georgia, up into the Appalachian Mountains. Saw tons and tons of snow, record-breaking snow, severe weather in Florida with tornadoes, and feet of snow in the Appalachian Mountains. And on up into the northeast, just got pulverized as this storm system was a triple phase event. You had several pieces of energy and various jet streams come together, subtropical jet, polar jet, Arctic jet, all kind of phased together over the southeast and the Gulf, and this thing just rapidly deepened, and it was forecast, well forecast in advance, and it was a big storm for the East Coast, one that you don't see come along all that much, but places all up and down the East Coast got pulverized with snow. We just got a bunch of heavy rain in Raleigh for the most part, with some wind as it moved through, and blizzard conditions, lots and lots of high wind reports, 60s, 70s, 80 mile per hour winds, even 90 mile per hour winds too in places, folks. It was a big storm. Also in history, on this date back in 1929, the stock market experienced a massive crash, marking the beginning of the Great Depression. I'm sure you all heard about the Great Depression. Millions of investors lost huge sums, triggering worldwide economic turmoil. And also back in 2003, the Concorde, which was a supersonic jet airplane, it carried passengers back and forth, and there were some issues with it. I think one crashed, and then one finally made its final commercial flight back in 2003 on October the 24th. Okay, so there you have it, history, folks. You understand the weather now, and I will keep you posted on the tropical system and how the hurricane develops as it comes, as it moves forward, as we move forward in time over the next several days. A lot of changes to the forecasts are likely, so stay tuned here. Leave me a comment if there's anything I could be a prayer about. Let me know. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful Friday afternoon and a great weekend. We'll be back again tomorrow with another show, folks. And if I need to update you in the meantime, check me out on Twitter, X at Real, I keep calling it Twitter, X at Real Cold Rain. Anyway, have a wonderful day, folks. We'll see you soon.